Hey guys, what's going on? Dr. Frank here, founder of Addiction Mindset Recovery Coaching. So in today's brief video, I want to talk about 3 reasons why I quit smoking weed, or should I rather say 3 reasons why weed quit smoking me. I know that sounds weird, but I'm going to explain that. Here at Addiction Mindset, we help people quit nicotine, THC, energy drinks, pornography, addictions, all types of things. So be sure to subscribe below and hit that like button if you find value in this video. So here's the problem that I ran into along my weed smoking journey, along my weed smoking career. When I first started smoking weed at one point in my life, it was truly a good time. And when I first started smoking, I was probably 22, 23 years old. I was in college at the time. I was in undergrad, or maybe I was just starting grad school. And I had, a college apartment. I had some roommates. And we were really, really big into drinking. So, like, every weekend we would go out binge drinking, even sometimes during the weekdays, Wednesday nights. And I'm here in Buffalo, New York, so we would drink from 9 p.m. right up until 4 a.m. That's when the bars would close. And then at 4 a.m. we would usually go get food afterwards. So you'd be up from like 9 p.m. till 6 a.m. just getting absolutely bombed and eating a bunch of crap. Now, when weed got introduced into my life and introduced into my friendship circles, one of the things that happened was kind of a good thing. We stopped drinking, and our nights became more of like, hey, let's get together on a Friday or Saturday night. Let's smoke some weed, watch some Netflix, watch some YouTube videos, have a laugh, and then everyone just falls asleep. So when I first started smoking weed, it honestly kind of stopped all the alcohol consumption that was going on. And it went from these crazy long extended nights to relatively early nights just enjoying watching TV and having a good time with my friends. And that was, again, at the ages of 22, maybe 23 years old. And it was a relatively good time. I didn't have any problems with it. If anything, I think it was beneficial. As time went on, and I didn't notice that this was happening, but I started to develop a dependence upon THC, and I would only smoke at night. Like, throughout my whole weed addiction, I would only smoke during the evening hours, and I noticed that I needed weed to fall asleep at night. So I could not sleep without smoking, and really what that was is that's a withdrawal symptom, that insomnia that was developing from not smoking. I didn't know it at the time, but that's what was happening. So I went from smoking maybe 2 nights a week to now I was smoking 4 nights a week. And then eventually that turned into smoking Monday through Sunday, Monday through Monday. I was smoking every night of the week just to fall asleep. And it was also to kind of cope with the stress of school and daily stress that I had going on in my life. And this is really where the weed usage started to change. So, like, my mindset surrounding weed was now changing, and I didn't realize it. Something that was once fun, just a good time here and there, was now quietly becoming something I was dependent upon, something that I was becoming very reliant upon, and something that I was developing withdrawal symptoms when I wasn't using it, especially during the evening hours. So as time went on, throughout my college career, I lived at home at points of it, and I lived at college at points of it. And here I was now, let's say a little bit older, 26 years old, living at home, still smoking weed, hiding from my parents as a grown man with grown man jobs, trying not to get caught smoking weed. And at this point, I would tell myself, you can't be doing this. You got to stop doing this. And yet here I was continuing to do it, not acknowledging that I had a problem when it came to THC. And I think a lot of people I talk to are on this boat. And what was important for me to realize was what weed once was for me, a good time with my friends on a Friday, Saturday night, was now not a good time. My life, here I am at 26, 27 years old, looked very, very different from my life at 22 years old. And I wasn't very accepting of the fact that maybe weed was no longer playing a positive role in my life at the age of 26, 27, 28 years old as maybe it was playing a positive role in my life at the age of 22, 23 years old. Maybe it was always negative. I don't know. It's hard to say. But I can tell you for sure, if I would have paused and started to be mindful of what was actually going on in my life at that moment, when I was at a point where I was ready to quit weed and thinking about quitting weed, I would have realized that the weed that once was no longer was the weed that now was at this point in my life, if that makes sense. And I think that's one of the hardest mindsets for people to accept and to let go of when it comes to quitting weed, or when it comes to even just taking a tolerance break. Hey, maybe this thing that was once a really good time and a lot of fun and benefiting you is now a negative in your life. And accepting that your use now is very, very different than your use back then, and maybe it's in a very negative manner. I think that's one of the hardest things about quitting weed. So that was the first reason why weed started to quit me. My life was just different. I was at a different place in my life. Reason number two, it was truly interrupting day-to-day things. Like, here I was working these part-time crappy jobs. Here I was also building my business, but I was working these other jobs to kind of sustain income while I built my business, which was good. That's a good thing. Like, that was good hustle. But at the same time, all that night I was spending, all that time during the evenings I was spending getting high at night, should have been time that I was working on my business, that I was working on my goals, my motivations, my hobbies, my ambitions. So kind of classic, like, weed stuff, I really was becoming less motivated. I really was becoming less ambitious. All of my time, energy, and focus during those evening hours, instead of going into growing a life for myself that I wanted, it was going into smoking weed, when really I should have been working. I should have been continuing to pursue things that I wanted to pursue, things that excited me, but instead I would go home, smoke as soon as I got home, and then just chill and watch TV or browse my phone for 3-4 hours a night. And that was super damaging when it came to my career and when it came to the direction that I wanted to be going in my life. And mentally, that became very damaged to my mental health as well, too. And you could argue my physical health, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So, yeah, I noticed the classic, like, my goals, my ambitions, my motivations, they were all going downhill just because I wasn't using my time wisely. I don't know that it was necessarily the weed that destroyed that, but I was focusing a lot of my time on weed. Financially, too, of course, I was making a dedication to weed, right? This stuff was getting expensive. As I was making more money, I started to buy higher and higher quality THC products, and I could afford it at the time, but really that money should have been going into buying a new camera for this business, buying a new microphone, whatever it was, but investing it into some type of stock or index fund for my retirement, investing it into a wedding ring for, my future fiance, life insurance, whatever it is you should be investing your money in, something that gives you something in return, right? And at this point in my life, weed wasn't giving me anything in return. It was just something that was taking from me. It was taking from my finances. Maybe in the past, weed used to give me, a burst of joy or a good time. But at this point, it was only taking from me. It wasn't giving me anything in return. And financially, that was becoming quite a commitment. And also, financially, it was a commitment because my time that I should have been putting into continuing to grow my life and my businesses was spent being high in the evenings. So it wasn't only costing me the money up front, but it was now also costing me the money that should have been going towards growing a future for myself. And then 3, health. And this was a little different. So right around when I quit, somewhere between the ages of 27, 28 years old, I want to say is right around where it was, dank vapes had just hit the market, and black market THC cartridges had just hit the market. And I'm in New York State, so we didn't have like dispensary stuff. So I was buying these black market products. And I remember the first time I smoked a dank vape, I said, this is bad. Like, this high is bad. Everything about this is bad news. And that just accelerated the addiction, because now you could smoke this thing more often. Again, I never smoked during the day. I was too busy working and doing other things. But at night, like, my smoking definitely increased. It didn't smell. which was perfect for a grown adult living at home. Right? It was easy, it was convenient to use, and it was a really weird high because of all the chemicals in it and pesticides, I would assume. And at this point, my health really started to deteriorate. Like, I wasn't working out anymore. My relationships were falling apart. I was starting to develop like nightly panic attacks. I mean, just on a nightly basis. And I was starting to develop very early symptoms of cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. I couldn't eat food in the mornings because I was so nauseous all the time. I had lost a lot of weight. At this point, I wasn't vomiting, but I had lost a lot of weight. Like, I didn't look good. Physically, I didn't look good. And like, I knew I had to stop. Even when I was smoking, I felt like weed was telling me, Frank, you're done. Like, you had your fun with me. It's run its course, but you need to stop now. And that was really, really hard for me because of the addiction that I had developed to weed. And that's why we now have these companies that are dedicated to helping people quit nicotine, THC, energy drinks, and pornography, because these things can be hard to quit. Some people can quit and it's no problem. But for me, it was hard to quit. And I'll make a video more about how I actually quit. I'll give you guys one tip in this video. I had a daily mantra for myself, and it was, Frank, you just can't do this today. And that would be in reference to weed. So I'd get an urge to rip my cart. I'd get an urge to smoke. And I would tell myself, Frank, you just can't do this today. You can do all these other things. You can go for a walk. You can exercise. You can work on making YouTube videos. You can work on your business. You can work on this. You can do that. But you just can't do this. And that went for like alcohol, nicotine, and a handful of other things too. And that worked wonders for me. Just waking up each day, taking it day by day, and saying, Frank, you just can't do this one thing today. But you can do all these other things, all these other great things. And that turned out to, that was the start of building this business and many other great opportunities that I've been fortunate enough to have in my life now. So I think the point of this video is that the mindset change surrounding weed, something that was once maybe a good time, something that was maybe once benefiting me, no longer was at this point in my life. And that was a really, really hard mindset to accept. But the sooner you can accept that mindset about THC, I think the easier it's going to be to overcome a THC addiction or a weed addiction. And I hope that helps. I'll see you guys in the next video where I talk about some tips when it comes to overcoming the insomnia that you get when you first quit weed. I'll see you guys there.